my co-host tonight. Yeah, Dan, it's nice. It's 58, 55. I don't know what it's saying right now. What is it saying? What is the temperature right now? Yeah, it's saying 55 degrees here in Plano, so whatever, it's great. Oh, Rolls, this is my these are my yardsticks, as I call them. They're my cheapos. They're my Flor de Olivia that I pick up. I mean, they're like $6 a stick, so it allows me to, smoke one. And if I don't, or if I'm out here like working in the yard or working in the garage, I can leave it there, come back to it, and I don't feel like I wasted an expensive stick. But yeah, Dan, I worked all day in the living room, and my hands and feet were just in that like weird, like just not warm enough. So I constantly went to go put socks on today because I was just like, the house just wasn't warm enough for sure. Edges are my cheap stick for exactly. Yeah, man. Edges are good. Who makes those? Those are Rocky Patel, right? So Rocky Patel edges. Those are some pretty good simple sticks to kind of light up. I used to pick up nubs for that, but then the Drew Estate nub, they got too much. I think I was paying like $8 or something like that, or $10 for a shorty, the nub style. And it just, I was like, I found these, and these can range from like $6, and they're pretty decent made for what they are. But yeah, it's Pedro's out today. He's got some work to do, and because of that, he was like, hey, I'm not gonna be able to do it. And the weather was real nice. I decided, hey, let me go ahead and do the stream by myself. And then I was like, well, why don't I do it outside? I don't get a chance. And then I also had to make sure to look up the rules, because I really wanted to smoke when I'm outside. But I was like, can you smoke on stream? And sure enough, Twitch, I looked up the rules. Apparently you can even smoke weed, apparently, as long as it's legal in the area where you're streaming from and you're old enough to consume or imbibe. So you can drink and smoke on camera as long as you are in a location where it is considered legal to do. And I'm smoking a cigar, and I am over 40, so I'm totally in the legal range, folks. Oh man. Anywho, I guess I will kick this off. Let's kick off the stream and go. Hey, welcome to Mid-Geek Crisis, episode 194. And of course, my dog decides to bark as soon as I start the stream, because they haven't barked the entire time I was out here. I am here by myself today. I wasn't going to run it. I was actually going to cancel the stream today, but a couple things happened today. A couple things happened this week that I felt like I wanted to address. Small stories or big small stories, I guess. And at the same time, we had kind of a quiet Apple release today. And kind of want to rant on camera about that one a little bit, just because it was definitely an interesting release by Apple. But I'll get to that later. Let's chat a little bit in chat. What's going on, everybody? Hopefully everyone had a good week. Let's see here. Twitch. I think they have something about being drunk. Yeah, you can't be like excessively drunk on stream, not excessive consumption. And also, if you can't sleep on stream, from my understanding, if you fall asleep on camera and you're still streaming, from my understanding, they will they can ban your account. There's There's one of the puppers down here at the bottom. There we go. Mochi over here. But yeah, so that's from what I remember. I think someone got banned or something for passing out on stream from drinking too much, and then they like banned his account or banned him for a certain amount of days. Dan, this day and age with Twitch and the way things are, I mean, everyone's trying to push the limit on what they can do on camera, right? I mean, we've got the hot tub streams, and we've got all sorts of like pushing the edge of adult content on the platform. That something like this, I mean, it again, I looked it up. I wanted to be sure because I was like, oh my god, what if I smoke a cigar? And they're like, you can't smoke on camera, and they ban my freaking Twitch account. And I'm like, no. So but yeah, it's a nice weather. It's nice weather out here. It's 55 degrees. It's kind of my favorite time. Yeah, hot tub streams are okay. Sleeping on stream, nope. Permaban, not permaban nowadays, but it definitely will ban you. Hot tub streams are interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about that because that's a good lead-in. Roles. I want to talk about this particular streamer. This that I don't follow, but she's pretty popular. She's got, I don't know, she's got to have, couple 100,000 followers on Twitch and a couple of other places as well. I don't think she's got an OnlyFans, if I'm not mistaken. If you're familiar with streaming in general, or just familiar with Twitch culture, there's one particular streamer that a lot of people know about. It's Amaranth here, and she's had a stream for years and years and years. And she came out, she had a stream and put up a bunch of pictures online, and we're pretty much saying that yes, she's married. Yes, she does have an OnlyFans, as what Ria's saying here. And that's fine. I mean, adult content and everything else sells. On this stream we talk about sex work in general is work. I have nothing against it. Amaranth is she's a streamer, and she pulls in the views, man. I mean, she's a very pretty lady, and she's enticing to watch, and she does hot tub streams and all sorts of stuff, and more power to it, man. I've got nothing but love for people that do that kind of stuff, and the reason for that is because I mean, like, if you can do it and you can capitalize on it, man, just capitalize, make that money, make it how you can. We're only so young, we're only so young. Our bodies only work for some amount of time. Might as well capitalize. And if you can use your body to, if working in the fields or working on construction and putting your body on the line to make money, putting your beauty and your youth on camera and getting paid for it, is in the same boat. I think, personally. That's my personal opinion. Whatever your opinion is it's up to you. Yes, but so Amaranth was talking about how, so first off, she announced that she was married, and she'd been married for a very long time, which already was a big shock, right? So you had a bunch of streamers, but you had all sorts of like hate against her online for that, because she said that she was, apparently everyone thought that she was single. And so you had this the incel / weird man culture that is the internet immediately get mad and say, oh, she took everyone's money. Like, apparently because she was married meant that she didn't deserve the money because everyone thought that she was single. It's this weird, like, I give you money because maybe you might date me kind of like weird relationship that some of these people had with their weird social parasitic relationship with her. Anywho, she came out and said that she was married and that her husband had been forcing her to do a lot of these like hot tub streams and whatnot for money and everything else, and she'd been abused and just all sorts of things. It's a weird scenario, that kind of makes the news, but it's been all over the place. It's interesting because, again, she's such a big name in the streaming kind of culture and environment that I felt like I had to talk about it. Twitch has become a business in the past 5+ years. This is a hobby for me, not my living. I have a 9-to-5. I don't think this will ever be a full-time job for me. I don't think I've got it in me to do that kind of stuff. But that said, though, she was putting in the hours, like lots of streams every day, had a schedule and all sorts of stuff. And so yeah, she's still married. Apparently, someone did a wellness check on her today, Dan. They were talking about how she had posted all this online, all this came to light. All of a sudden, the internet doxed her. They did all sorts of stuff, because of course you got to blame blame the person. That's blame the victim. That's what happens in modern internet culture nowadays, right? And of course, that's one of those scenarios where they had to check on her. So she did stream yesterday finally, and she was wearing like a sweater, like not covering herself up and all sorts of stuff. And she pretty much said that she's safe right now. She's working through it because technically it was a lot of the abuse was verbal abuse, and she had no evidence or anything like that regarding actual like physical abuse. Hold on. She because of that, there legally there wasn't anything they can do. So she's okay with her husband, and at this point, I guess they're going to work it out. I don't know. I haven't followed up more on it outside of that, but I just thought it was an interesting kind of share that you have like the culture of Twitch, and the fact that she came out and said that she was being like psychologically abused and mentally abused, and a lot of spousal abuse. In that, forcing you, holding on to her money, holding on to, all sorts of financial fraud. Go check out the story, go read it. I'm not going to get much more into it than that, but that's not okay. Obviously, you want to do this kind of stuff for fun, not for what, not forced to do anything you don't want to. And apparently she says she's free now. Who knows what type of stream she'll be doing? Who knows if she'll continue doing that kind of stream and that kind of work? It might be something that she probably wasn't comfortable doing to begin with, but she did it because she was trying to keep her husband happy. And yeah, that sucks. Yeah, and again, she apparently it was like a fight, and she had enough, and she kind of aired it all out there. So, from my understanding. But anywho, all right. So let's move on to the next story I wanted to talk about. Here was another big internet story that hit over the weekend was, yeah. Well, Rita, you're absolutely right. A lot of women have trouble speaking up on that, and then when they do, the backlash happens, and that's exactly what happened with her. Sadly, it's one of those scenarios where what she did was come out into the open to kind of say what happened, and of course, a lot of fans turned on her. Fans, I say fans in the biggest air quotes possible. People that had ulterior motives, they turned on her and said that she took advantage of her fan base because she was married, and she took all this money, and it's wrong for her to do that. And so, that's what happens. Yeah, you're right. It took a lot of bravery to do that. You're literally breaking your income, right? The amount of income you're quitting a job without any fallback. I mean, who knows if she'll continue making the money that she's making now? Who knows? We'll see. Another drama-filled story over the internet, but video game related this time around, not just the Twitch or anything like that, was we had, if you've been following, Bayonetta 3 is going to come out soon. A game that's been in development hell for a very long time with Nintendo and Platinum Games. It's the third sequel to a very popular franchise, Bayonetta. And if you hadn't been following along, we know that there was a new casting for her voice. So they had casted Jennifer Hale, who plays a female shepherd on Mass Effect and a couple of other places. She's a prolific voice actor, and she had taken over the voice of Bayonetta, and the original voice actor came out. Helena Taylor is the original voice actor for Bayonetta, and she kind of went online and kind of stated what had happened. Apparently, she broke NDA by doing this. She was like, I'm breaking NDA by doing this, but I have to air this out because I think it's unfair. She was stating that Platinum Games had only offered her $4,000 total for the entire body of work for Bayonetta 3. And she didn't want to do it for that amount. This is the third installment. This is a lot of voice acting. It's not just a couple. I mean, there's a whole story mode that she has to talk. Her voice is being used to promote the product. I mean, if you play Smash Brothers, you play Bayonetta 1 and 2, her character, all the voice work that is that character is her. And so she, like anybody, if you're in any type of actor, when you get a sequel, you get more money than the first one. By the third one, you're making a lot more money, because obviously if the movie or show or whatever continued and was popular enough to make a third sequel, you would at that point be making money like any other actor. $4,000 seemed absolutely ridiculous. She was basically calling out Platinum Games and the abuse towards voice actors in general. And um, Dan, it was a lot. She doesn't say how much, but I'm going to get to that in a second. But every other voice actor, came out and said, other voice actors in the industry, whether it's shows or video games or whatnot, said that's entirely too low for the amount of work. I mean, you're talking about hours and hours in the booth. It doesn't matter if it's $4,000. If you want to break it down to hourly fee, you are an actor in the face of a franchise. So $4,000 is not enough. Actors don't get paid that much, and if your voice is tied to a character, you are that character, right? I mean, it's the way it goes, I think, personally. It kind of goes back to the conversation we had about Mario and Charles Martinet. I'm pretty sure he's a Nintendo employee by this point. He probably gets paid a salary so that they can continue getting, but I guarantee you he probably makes more than $4,000 every time he's used, because he is the voice of Mario, right? It is a little bit, if you follow any type of anime voice actors and whatnot, you'll know that they make a little bit more than $4,000. That said, though, predatory conduct from a lot of places and companies will try to lowball you, right? Because voice acting is already kind of seen as a weirdness, because you're not technically acting, is what they say. When in reality, voice actors are actors. Let's just put it out there. Let's start with that. The budget for the game is millions rolls. This is a multi-million-dollar game, multi-million-dollar franchise. Part 1 and 2 have sold millions of copies. Part 1 was on PS3, 360, was then ported over to the Switch, is now on PC. So it's got multiple console base and install bases. Part 2 was an exclusive to the Wii U and then came out on the Switch. And then part 3 is the Switch. Yeah, here we go. So like Bayonetta made $600 million in its first 3 weeks. There you go. So that's a big amount of money. $4,000 for the voice actor is absolutely ridiculous. So she called for a boycott, right? And a lot of people were really jumping on that. It got messy over the weekend, because then you had the vice president of Platinum, who is actually kind of a big troll on the internet. He's kind of known for like blocking anybody who doesn't respond to him in Japanese, and just in general has always been kind of a troll online. But everyone thought it was like endearing. Well, he immediately started blocking anybody who talked about it. Kiyama, I think is his last name. I always forget his first name. But anywho, VP to Platinum Games came out and in Japanese said that it's insulting. Now that said, today we finally got a follow-up. Apparently Bloomberg, Jason Schreider from Bloomberg kind of did some investigation, and through some sources, and I'm going to read it. I'm going to read the tweet from him, and I'll put up his tweet thread today because some new information came to light. He's saying, last weekend, Bayonetta former voice actor called for fans to boycott the game, saying that she was offered $4,000 to work on it. Her Twitter videos went viral and stoked a debate over voice acting wages, but the full story is much more complicated, and this is where it came out. Platinum offered Helena Taylor between $3,000 and $4,000 per session for at least 5 sessions, according to 2 people familiar with the deal, in documentation viewed by Bloomberg. In response, the people said Taylor asked for a 6-figure fee and residuals. Negotiations fell apart. Hold on, Roll. So it gets a little interesting here. So I know you're saying there it is. Taylor denies this account. In an email to Bloomberg, she called the version of events an absolute lie and said that Platinum is trying to save their ass in the game. Taylor's videos have received more than 6.9 million views on Twitter and led to divulge of calls from fans and pundits to boycott Bayonetta 3. But the accounts and evidence reviewed by Bloomberg make it clear that those videos were not the whole story. Taylor's videos also led to a barrage of Twitter vitriol and harassment towards Platinum developers and new voice actor Jennifer Hale, who put out a statement saying she could not comment and subsequently retweeted a telling thread. It's unlike the full story will get much traction, as many eyeballs as the original Twitter video, which, in my opinion, raises some interesting questions about pleas to emotion and how information is disseminated in social. So this is interesting about this. $4,000 is just not enough. Let's just put that out there. If someone offered me $4,000 and I was the face of a franchise at this point, and this is the third version of the game, I would definitely also be fighting for my pay, right? That said, um, this new information, $4,000 to $5,000 per session for 5 sessions, is not bad. I mean, from what I'm reading as well, that's still kind of low, according to other voice actors, but it's better. It's definitely a lot better deal. Now, the interesting part about this is, I mean, why do this? Again, I don't know what's real and what isn't. This, to her defense, this does sound like, hey, now you've got all this documentation to say otherwise, which is fine. But at the same time, like, it would be weird for a voice actor to kind of burn an NDA, put yourself out there to be sued, put yourself out there to not get a job ever again. It's an interesting, like, thing to do, to kind of go out there and put your entire career on the line for something that is a lie, right? I just don't know. I don't know. At this point, I don't know what to. It's not up to us. We don't know the truth. Dan, yeah, I heard that was blown away. Like, the guy who voiced Trevor in GTA 5 made more for his roles in Better Call Saul than what Rockstar paid him. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Voice acting in general is just kind of an abusive thing. I think out of all of this, I'm hoping that one of the conversations that happens is with voice actors in general and companies. They kind of be more mindful about how much you're paying these voices. I mean, if video games are supposed to be a new form of, like, entertainment, then voice actors should be paid what they're worth. And working in the booth and being the face of a popular franchise character is important. They deserve to be paid. So if it was $4,000, that's not very much. If it's, like Dan is saying, $4,000 per session does sound like a nice gig to me. I agree. That sounds pretty decent for a job. Hopefully you'd have other jobs in line. That's not your entire income for the year, but it's quite a bit of money to make, for sure. And hopefully that is the truth. But at the same time, I question the idea that they came back and rebutted with all this evidence, when someone is literally putting their entire career on the line to say otherwise. Like, this isn't someone saying, oh, well, they were offering me this much, but I'm very thankful for Platinum. I'm not going to say any more than that. I don't want to break my NDA. This is her literally breaking contractual NDA you're going up against the publisher Nintendo and Platinum Games to go against this. It's interesting. I don't think voice actors don't have union production like screen actors do, and video game companies definitely take advantage. Right, go ahead, you're absolutely right. They totally take advantage of it. They pay whatever they want. There's not really a going wage. They kind of go, we need a voice of this. We'll go to the stable of famous voice actors. They'll look at their rates. They kind of go through a contract and see what they pay them. If they don't like what comes back, they'll go to the next one, and they'll audition multiple different voice actors until they get a price point and maybe a feel. I'm sure there's been many voices in video games that have settled on voice acting and just voices in general. Makes me wonder if they wanted to step it up and get Jennifer Hales, but she needed to quit for them to hire. Maybe, but it's interesting to change the voice of a very popular character, that sultry voice. I mean, if you listen to Bayonetta, go watch any of the clips, go watch the long, cinematic, movie of part 1 and 2 that people have put up online. There's a lot of voice acting there. There's a lot of that voice is very specific. It's not saying that someone else can't replace it, but it's weird to me to just go and change it to someone else on the third of a franchise. I don't know. I don't know what to take about that. I just it's interesting that over the weekend, I mean, there were a lot of people that were just like, yo, this is not okay. I'm not going to buy this game. And all of a sudden this comes out to kind of go, wait, hold on. That's not the whole story. And maybe it wasn't the whole story to begin with, but I don't know if coming back out and turning it on her by saying that what she's saying is an outright lie. There is something still missing in this story. that I feel needs to be stated. Yeah, and again, Jennifer's not going to say how much she's being paid for, but I guarantee you she might be being paid more. I don't know. Business deals in the industry are always, yeah, right. They're always on the up and up, for sure. So today, I'm going to move on real quick. So today, another bit of information was announced. We finally got, so a few weeks back, or maybe a month back or so, the PlayStation had announced their kind of their Pro controller. It's called their Dual Edge, and today pre-orders went up for it. It's essentially their Pro version of their DualSense 5. You can, replacement stick caps, and you can replaceable stick modules, and you can have paddles on the back. And just a lot of people like these type of controllers. It allows you to customize and do more things with them. You can remap certain buttons for faster access, reload, that sort of thing. I have a Pro controller for the Xbox. I have the Pro, the original Pro, and the Pro 2. I feel like sometimes the investment, if you like the comfort and the custom being able to customize it in general is something, if you, this is what you do, then, by all means invest in it. That said, though, the price point was announced today, and let me tell you, that is a steep price. The price of this controller is $200. That's a bit steep for me. I don't know if it's worth that much, honestly. I mean, the amount of tech in there is nice, but $200 for it is a little bit excessive, I think, for that controller. So pre-order start on the 25th of October, actually. So to be out by November. Right. So Dan, yeah, I mean, modern gaming in general has gotten more complex with more buttons and whatnot, but right. So Gastrono, it's essentially identical, like profiles and customizing the triggers. They don't have the adaptive feedback triggers that the resistance that the DualSense and the DualSense has for the PlayStation 5. But even then, the level of customizability for the Xbox Pro is there. The Xbox Pro controller, the Xbox Elite controller, sorry, I keep saying Pro, but that's because that's the name of the Switch one. The Elite controller, the first one and the second one, is $149, so it's $50 cheaper. Yeah, the knockoff controller, yeah, $10 exactly. I mean, I had a conversation with someone online talking about how, here we go paying $200 for controllers. First party controllers for the PS5 and the Xbox Series and Series X and S are $70. I mean, to be fair, these controllers have a lot more tech. They've got a lot of Bluetooth, they've got a lot of sensors and rumble, and they've got like audio interfaces so that you can plug headphones into. So I get the price point, but $70 is what we pay for the base ones now. And I was just thinking way back to the day when I was a kid and I only had my first OEM controller for whatever console I had. And I could never afford. I mean, paying OEM prices for a Super Nintendo controller was like $40. It's practically the price of a stick. So could you imagine as a kid going, I can't pay first party prices for a Super Nintendo control pad. So you would buy a third party. You would buy like if you had a PlayStation or PlayStation 2 or an Xbox, you'd buy like the Mad Catz, the cheaper $20 controller with all the neon and the lights. You had Mad Catz for the win. There you go. And they were just crappy, and they were just used for second player, right? Anyone would come over, your little brother, your little sister, your someone, your friend coming over, you would play a versus game, and whoever lost would get the crappy third party controller because it sucks so bad. And I don't think I remember. There was a few third party controllers that I remember that enjoyed, but honestly, most of the time they were always pretty bad. I want to control like the Jaguar. Yeah, Jaguar with the full phone keypad front. Right, and the Nintendo Max controller, yeah, turbo and autofire, but also the worst D-pad ever. Did anyone own the Nintendo Max controller? Do you remember what that looked like? It was the little small boomerang shaped one with A and B, and then the small turbo autofire buttons. But then the D-pad was like it it was a black ring around it that was the button, right? And then the center was a little red slider, and you'd slide your finger and then push down to kind of get to it. It was only good for Gyrus. Uh, yes, it was terrible, but yet that was the max control. That was a first party controller though, so that was a Nintendo branded first party controller, and it was pretty bad. And also, do you remember like the NES Advantage, right? The big arcade stick NES controller with the switches for auto fire and all of that, and that was more for even older gamers, right? When we were younger, 85, 86, when the console came out, older gamers, teens and onward, were used to playing with joysticks, right? Arcades and Atari, and so a lot of loved playing with the Advantage. The Advantage was actually like a really cool controller for them to use because D-pads were a new thing. Yet that's what we grew up with. So it's interesting. Auto speed control, fantastic. Yeah, the NES Advantage was great. Again, $200 though. I mean, we're talking, that's a Nintendo Switch Lite in a controller. Like you're buying a whole Nintendo Switch with that. That's excessive. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the Elite isn't expensive either. $150 is expensive as well. But I mean, that's a big chunk of change, right? That's almost 50% of the console for one controller. Again, it's not a necessity. It is a pro controller. It is something for you to, in a luxury, an investment. But still, that's some craziness right there. Yeah, everything's going up. $200 for sure is definitely a no-go for me too. I don't know if I would spend $200. That said, though, I have some expensive fight sticks, but that's a different story, right? Like that's like people that buy the Hotas, the fight sticks, right? And the flight sticks with like throttle control and driving controls and all of that, those are expensive because those have like feedback and motors and multiple modules and all of that. Those are expensive, like $500 setups. But $200 on like a gamepad, unless you feel like you are limited by the DualSense, that's like individuals who buy what we have. There's a saying in like graphics work where people that would spend the $600 to buy Photoshop, and they didn't know how to use it, so they would use like all of like $50 worth of Photoshop. How many people are actually using all $70 of their DualSense with a $200 controller? Are they using $200 worth of the controller, or are they just using it? The feel is exactly the same as a DualSense. They just want to have the best. I'd spend $200 to get killed in 2 minutes. Yeah, right, exactly. So like if you're not already top tier with a regular controller and that new controller is making you better, then I don't think spending $200 is going to help you in any way. It's not going to make you a better gamer in any way. Okay. That said, of course, Nintendo, Xbox being the competition that they are, as soon as that story hit that the pre-orders went up, immediately Xbox rebutted with this, that they dropped their Elite 2s are now available in their design lab, which means that you can now customize it and order it for $150. So for $150, you can order the controllers $150, $149.99. But you can go in and order it and change, customize it, different colors, different color buttons, that sort of thing. So same thing, comes with a dock, comes with a case, comes with buttons and thumbsticks and all sorts of things to customize for you. And so $50 cheaper. I bought mine on sale. I paid a little under 100 for it as a deal. So almost as much as a normal controller, but I've used it since I had my Elite, since I had my Series X, and it's great. So, but then again, I like it only because I like the profiles on it. But I guarantee you, I'm still not using $150 worth of that controller for sure. For sure. I felt a great disturbance. There you go. See, right? I mean, I think it's pretty neat. Also, if you ever gone to the design lab, you can actually add like your gamer tag. They'll etch it to the bottom as well. So, yeah. They did, right? So, Dan, they did announce this week. They announced the pre-orders for their Switch OLED, their Pokemon edition, which is like purple and red, or scarlet and violet, I guess is what it is. and it looks pretty cool. And of course, it's got a whole new dock or whatever, and it's $300+ for the OLED model. And so, yeah, of course it is, because the holiday season's coming and we need new SKUs and new hardware to sell. I get it for sure. Anywho, moving on. Speaking of Marvel, were we speaking of Marvel? Someone was thinking about Marvel. Someone somewhere was thinking about Disney and Marvel. We have, William Hurt passed away last year, who was also known as General Thunderbolt Ross in the Marvel Universe. He has not been recast, and they have recast him as Harrison Ford. So Harrison Ford is back at Disney, working in Marvel. Let's see if they've got his quote. I was reading a quote saying, let's see if they got it. I gotta find the quote. Anywho, he had quoted saying that if he wasn't back, if they didn't get it, they'd like hurt his family or something. It's something ridiculous, because that's how Harrison Ford is. He's such a clown when it comes down to that kind of stuff. He said that Disney said that if I don't come in, they'll hurt my family. So if he doesn't take the role, so there he goes. He's back at Disney. He was either do this role or you're doing Han Solo again, and he was like, no, that's okay, I'll do this role. So there we go. Harrison Ford is not part of the Marvel universe. Who is left? Are we gonna have Mark Hamill? Is Mark Hamill part of the MCU? Has he done a voice or anything? Oh yeah. I mean, okay. So a keyboard is a keyboard, right? Like that's something that you're touching more, you're typing on, and the whole keyboard like customization culture in general is also another thing, right? There are people that build their own, and they order specific switches. I mean, the keyboard culture nowadays is you can buy chassis, PCBs, switches, and keycaps, right? So you can build it from scratch. Every feeling that for the entirety you can get through, right? Different manufacturers for switches. Let's say you just want your ASDW keys a specific feeling, then you can have only those a specific way. So it's interesting. Yeah, Keanu Reeves hasn't been announced. I'm interested. Who would you cast as who would Keanu Reeves be in the Marvel universe? That'd be fun to I mean, John Wick, who would he be? I would want him as like maybe Ghost Rider. There you go. You can totally write Ghost Rider. Exactly. Johnny Blaze. He already likes motorcycles. Like he's a huge motorcycle head. Put him as a Johnny Blaze. For God's sakes, that would be great. I'm willing to bet that Harrison Ford is getting paid more than $4,000. Yes. Well, I mean, he'd be on screen, but yes, even if he does the voice, if he's done a voice than anything else, I'm guarantee you they pay him more. That said, though, the voice industry is kind of sucky when it comes to that kind of stuff. A good example of this is Woody from Toy Story, right? So Tom Hanks is always busy, and so his brother does all of the voices for anything that's not on film, or if it's something like like Disney, like when you go to Disney and you've got like clips and animation and stuff that they film for just the park or tours or something like that. They have they animate all these special things. Tom Hanks isn't the one that's paid for that. It's his brother that comes in and does pretty much a Tom Hanks impression, and a lot of people can't even tell the difference. So I think that's always funny about that. Never forget, Mark Hamill made apparently $3 million for episode 7. That's awesome. Could you imagine $3 million to like turn on the camera? I mean, he literally, that's all he does, right? He just turns and looks at her, right? That's the final scene. You can make $3 million for that appearance. That's cool. That's cool right there. You take that role and just take that $3 million and immediately, invest it or do something fun with it. Like that's total FU money, right? Crazy. What else here? Did everyone catch up on She-Hulk? What's everyone's thought on She-Hulk? I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the season finale. I don't want to do spoilers if you haven't seen it, but I liked it a lot. I thought it was really good. I'm sure he's made a ton of appearances. Yeah, oh yeah, totally. I'm sure. I thought they really stuck the landing. Um, She-Hulk was good, man. I don't want to spoil anything. Has everyone seen the season finale? If not, I don't want to talk any spoilers. Uh, this was a show that was very polarizing on the internet. One, it was a female lead uh, character that was already kind of like the CG wasn't Marvel's top tier. But putting that aside, I enjoyed the crap out of it. I thought it was one of the most original things Marvel has done in a while. It was kind of a situational comedy slash drama slash lawyer fun. A good way to introduce Daredevil into the MCU. I mean, it's perfect example of bringing him in as a lawyer. Uh, I think seeing Daredevil in his mustard and ketchup outfit on set is awesome. That those are colors that I would have never seen in a pre MCU. Everything had to be dark and brooding and leather and having bright yellow and red ketchup and mustard colors. I think was pretty cool for that. And also he was funny, good interaction, good chemistry between him and She-Hulk. Uh, oh yeah, the acronym was fantastic. If you know, that was a great ending to the show. Um, I'm interested in the final scene, right? The stuff that was introduced at the end there. Very interesting introduction to specific character there. Not what I would have made the character look like, because that's not what he looks like in the comic. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Very, very whack looking character version of the character, I think. Maybe he'll look better in whatever next thing he comes out as. Um uh I saw a freaking thumbnail spoiling the character. Yeah, but even then, if you didn't read probably the caption for the thumbnail, you wouldn't know who it was, because he looked like no one in the MCU. He didn't look like anyone from the comic, because that's not what that comic character looks like. Not even close to what the character looks like. So, just bad, bad. I was so mad that they spoiled it. It sucks that it got spoiled for you, man. But honestly, it was the spoiler. You reading the spoiler was as much as you got on screen, right? It wasn't very much. Speaking of sadness, let's bring this in. So over the weekend, Comcast shut down G4, and we knew it was inevitable if you hadn't been following along. So it was an actual like channel, like it was a TV channel. It was a Comcast thing. You could like download an app. It was just not executed well. It was destined for failure. It was 100% set up for failure. Outside of the controversy of the what happened earlier this year with one of the co-hosts and whatnot, and I don't want to get into that at all. I think it's sad to see a lot of individuals lose their job, but honestly, it wasn't very good. I try to watch some of the G4 like wrap up stuff that they would put up on YouTube and whatever else, and it just wasn't as entertaining as it used to be. Maybe it had a lot to do with the fact that G4 is pre-Twitch, pre-streaming, pre all of that, and the tone was different then. Then gaming culture in general has changed since then, and then coming back and trying to do the exact same thing you were doing before felt weird. Um, yeah, exactly, Dan. You're absolutely right. Why would you bring back a tech-oriented channel / video game modern culture channel and bring it in such an old fashion? That is 100% a good take on that. It didn't fit the style. It didn't fit the culture. It just wasn't the way. I mean, it should have been. You should have made G4 a powerhouse Twitch thing, and have, Twitch streaming all the time, bring in some names, have a Twitch schedule, because that's where the gamers are. I don't understand what they were trying to do with this. And I think it failed because it was destined to fail. They had already done a couple firings like a couple weeks prior, and they thought that they were going to trim down and try to make it work. But a couple weeks after that, Comcast was like, you know what? No. And just canned everybody. The sad part is one of the co-hosts didn't even know he had been fired. Wario64 on Twitter. If you follow him, he's known for putting all sorts of gaming news and deals and all sorts of stuff. Like if you're looking for pre-ordering anything or watching prices, he's the guy to follow. He's the bot. He's not a bot. He's actually a real person, but to follow. But he's as fast as a bot. He posted immediately the press release the moment it came out, and sure enough, one of the hosts was like, "I just found out from your tweet that I am now jobless." I was like, how messed up is that your company couldn't even call all of your employees to tell them that they were canceling it before doing it? Just a mess all around. All around, just a mess. Sad to see it go. Hopefully we see some of those co-hosts that did kind of break out, go and do their own thing. Maybe they've made a fan base or a name for themselves and they can go out there and do their own thing. Some of them were already kind of Twitch. I know Scott the Waz, I think, popular YouTuber, had his own we sent an email. I think what happened is they probably just shut off all the Slack servers and emails. All of a sudden they're getting email login failures on their phones. Just all sorts of stuff. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Anywho. All right. So now comes the part of the show where I'm going to rant a little. Today, Apple, I'm actually gonna set the mood here. Just put a little music in the background because I feel like it's a little silent. Maybe just bring it up a little bit. Are they coming in? There we go. A little silent there because it's weird not having Pedro here to kind of talk back and forth with. So in my ears, there's just dead silent when I'm not talking. Today, Apple had their October event, right? And so I'm going to talk more to the camera as opposed to looking off to the side here. So Apple had their October event that they usually plan. This is, and again, to preface this, I'm an ex-Apple employee. I'm far beyond the NDA. I left the company back in 2018. Anything I know now has probably been outdated or whatever else. So, I'm sure if they wanted to come at me for something that I say or internally wise, I'm sure they could, but I don't think I'm going to say anything that could hurt it or, disclose anything I don't know or that the public doesn't already know. One, I'm a big Apple fan. I'm an Apple user. I tend to choose an Apple product over other products because I believe in the way and the functionality that Apple works. Like a lot of people like to call it the walled garden. It is a walled garden for sure, but 100%, I won't deny it. The connectivity between like the watch and the phone and your Mac and all of these products and iCloud and iMessage and all of that. The connectivity, it feels nice. It's I'm not fighting with third-party tools. I'm not fighting with just the weird. And again, this is I don't want to sound biased on this because again, I do love Google and I do love a lot of the Google products, and I use Gmail and I have Android devices, and there's a lot of Google products that I used online as well. But Google in general is known for killing their products, right? Like if you go back to the history of Google and look at, for example, Android and Android's just I'm gonna SMS, their SMS functionality, right? Their messaging functionality. Go back and look at Android phones and tell me what is the name of the built-in SMS application on Android phones. Now, whatever phone you get is gonna have a different name, different product. If you buy a Samsung, if you buy a Pixel, if you buy an LG, if you buy a whatever, holds up a lighter for Google Reader. Yeah, exactly. They've killed. There is a website. My buddy Adam isn't here on the stream, but he constantly sends me the link. It's a whole page that says what has Apple killed, and it shows you like a timeline of all the products that they've killed. Right, there we go. Messages, Hangout, Messages. Wait, no, Duo. There you go. That's exactly you're hitting it right in the head. This is one of the scenarios where Android likes to put the cart before the horses. Sometimes they'll, and Samsung likes to do a lot of the same too. They throw technology at the wall and see if it sticks. At the same time, you've got companies like Samsung competing within the Google ecosystem and releasing their own versions of products. So a good example that I would like to bring up is FaceTime, right? FaceTime is a built into the ecosystem at Apple video messaging. If you have an Apple product, you have a FaceTime account, which means that I know it, you know it. I hit the button, I dial it, you get video. Boom. End of discussion. A Google product, on the other hand, depending on who you buy it from, there is no built-in video functionality. Yes, it has a front-facing camera. Yes, you can use WhatsApp. Yes, you can use Google Hangout. Yes, you can use all sorts of other things, but there is no built-in into the operating system. When you open your phone, you are live and able to receive a video call without having something turned on. Either it's a Google messaging or a Hangout or a FaceTime Messenger or a WhatsApp or a Telegram or whatever of the third-party applications out there. And so that is kind of weird to me still, that we are in 2022 and Google, not for lack of trying, Google, for example, like you mentioned, Duo, was it Duo and LO? I think it was what it was called, ALLEO, like LO. They had one where they were trying to load it on Pixel phones, where you had it running in the background. Like you'd log in with your Google account on your phone and it was running, so you could receive their own version of FaceTime, right? But it's never been, it wasn't universal because Samsung wouldn't have it loaded or LG wouldn't have it loaded. And so not everyone owns a Google phone. They like to buy Samsung, they like to buy, and that's, again, the openness of Android. You have a choice in the hardware. With Apple, you don't. You buy the iPhone, you buy the iPhone. And so I understand that. As a tech and as someone that's a tech enthusiast, I enjoy tech and I enjoy the bleeding edge. Don't get me wrong. Again, as much as I love my iPhone, there's not a day that goes by that I don't look at a new Samsung phone when it gets released and I'm like, ooh, and I get that feeling, that like, that lustful feeling of like, that FOMO, that tech FOMO of like, man, could I use that? Could I use that? The fold, the flip, the flip is the one that I like more than the fold. The flip phone use is really cool. The fold is nice too. I like the fact that, especially the newer ones, it's got almost like a whole phone where it's like a regular bar phone, and when you flip it open, it's like a tablet. I think that's pretty cool. Like, don't get me wrong, but the tech isn't always there. Go read the horror stories of go read some of the horror stories of the individuals that have had the flip or the fold from the very beginning, and some of them won't last a year. The screen is peeling on the corners from like 6 months down the road, or they're on their replacement. Here's the Fold 4, for example. The Fold 4 has just come out, and they still haven't. The one thing that I can't get past is it's got like a crease in the middle. And you know, some people say that you can't see it when the screen is on, but the feeling of my finger would drive me crazy. Like I couldn't use it; it wouldn't be for me. But I'm glad that they're pushing the boundaries of tech. Cool. That said, Apple has just been like consistently better for me in the sense that, yes, everyone always likes to make the joke that they're late to things, but it's another example I like to bring up on this conversation is the Google Google Wallet. Right? So Google Wallet had been around for many years. NFC payments had been around for a very long time. And then Apple added it with their NFC, and they called it Apple Pay. And they branded it, and they released stickers, and they talked to merchants, and they sent them stickers to stick on their checkout registers. And all of a sudden, everyone had to do it. Samsung did Samsung Pay, and Google rebranded Google Wallet to Google Pay because they were just like, we need to compete too. And so now you have all of these NFC payments out there that are running through their own thing. And I thought that was interesting that here we had technology on the Android side that your phone was capable of doing this for many years before Apple, but it didn't become ubiquitous, across the board at many retailers until Apple pushed it, because Apple is a trendsetter, right? Another thing, let's see here. My first one was the 4. Couldn't stand it. Exchange it for an iPhone. Now I'm kind of stuck with the music and app stuff. But yeah, so that's another thing, right? So this day and age, we are 11, 12 years since the original iPhone. And a lot of us have many years of ecosystem purchase and use, right? We've all purchased apps and accessories, and we've got music purchased under like iTunes or Apple Music now, and all of that is kind of now legacy. It's hard. I can't. I mean, I don't know anyone who does this, but I've heard of stories of people that literally switch back and forth between Samsung and Samsung and I mean Android and Apple like it's nothing. Like they're able to just swap because they use a lot of the third party, like they use Spotify for their music and Google Photos for their photos, and that can be used on iOS or Android. And so they're outside of the Apple. They don't use the Apple ecosystem. But I feel like a lot of them leave Apple because they don't release that control to Apple. And I get that they don't want to, and more power to them. But that's kind of leads me to this conversation and the whole purpose of this kind of rant here. I've been in the tech industry for a very long time, and I worked for the company, and so I believe in a lot of the things that they did. So you can call me biased on the Apple side of things for sure. I won't lie. I prefer the Apple way. I also think Apple. I don't think Apple's infallible. Apple does things all the time that I disagree with. Good example is the headphone jack. I miss it all the time. I think it's silly that I can't plug my nice headphones into it. But that said, though, my AirPods are amazing. And I don't mind plugging in a dongle if I have to. It doesn't bother me. But the vitriol online about them removing the headphone jack, they made fun of them. Everyone made fun. Samsung put out stuff. Everyone put out like bash ads for it. And then the following year, everyone took the headphone jack away. And then Apple did the same thing with the charger, right? They stopped packaging the charger. They kind of came to the idea that like, look, everyone's got a freaking charger and everyone's buying these third party. There's a lot of companies out there, Anchor and all the other ones that make cheaper and better. That's what they do. They make chargers. Go buy another charger from someone else or just buy it separately. And then they made fun of Apple got made fun of. Oh, they're taking the charger away. Ours comes with the charger. The next year, Samsung took their charger out of the box. Like, it's so funny. Like everyone makes fun of what Apple does, but because they're a trendsetter, everyone then follows suit. So anywho, I think it's interesting in that regard that Apple deserves the hate that it gets sometimes. A lot of it doesn't. But today, they had their October event. And their October event is one of those moments where it's after they released the iPhone, and it's right before the holidays to kind of fill in the gap on products that they did not release in the year or that need a refresh, right? So sometimes it's laptops, sometimes it's the MacBook, sometimes it's most of the time it's the iPads, if the iPads have been around for a year or longer. It's the watches, but this time around the watch launched with the phone. It used to be where the October event used to be where like the iPods would get announced, right? Because that's where right before the holidays, it was a way for to get the iPods out there and music players for the holidays. This time around, it was 3 products got updated. So I'm going to start with one. And again, this is more Apple centric than I ever get on this show, but I wanted to kind of put it out there. One thing was the Apple TV. So the Apple TV is their streaming box, if you're not familiar with it. I love it. I think it's the best streaming box out there. It has some of the best video quality. The menu system is easy. Every other streaming service's app is nice and clean on there. In general, I think it's like you can buy an Apple TV and still have Amazon and YouTube and all of them on there, and without any problems. You can stream and view all of them. Same thing goes the Apple TV app for their service for like Ted Lasso and all their other popular shows is now available on other boxes. With that said, though, the Apple TV got an upgrade. Good, because they added HDR10 Plus is a format that they added for HDR, which is now, and it's also one of the only streaming boxes that supports Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision. So again, if you're an audiophile and a pixel peeper and like high quality video, the Apple TV is one of the highest ones out there. Cool. And they dropped the price. So $129 is now the entry level price. It's a little bit cheaper than it was before. A bigger processor, faster, that sort of stuff, because you're pushing out 4K video to your TV. Yeah, it's great. One of the things I didn't like about it is all of a sudden that there you go. So they dropped the price. They're like, ooh, now at a lower price. But the entry-level one removed the Ethernet port. So they didn't remove the price. They literally took $20 off of the price only for me to, if I want, I get a lot of people don't use Ethernet. That's fine. That's an option, a choice now. But I personally like mine wired because I 4K content and all that. I've got a gigabit network in my home. I can plug it in. First world problems for sure. But it's interesting again, like they tote that it's now cheaper, but then they remove a feature. And if you want that feature, you have to pay the price that it was before. So again, first mild rant, first mild annoyance there with that announcement. But that one's like, okay. I mean, I was looking to buy a new version of it because mine is the first version of the 4K box. And okay, that's cool. Another thing that they did though, here's another change, is in the box is the Apple remote, the Apple TV remote, which has been upgraded, the past few years. It's now a really nice, better remote than it was before. And it's a really cool remote. I kind of like the feel of that version of the remote. And they changed the charging port from the Lightning port at the bottom to USB-C. All right, cool. They don't give you a USB-C cable in the box. So if you're an Apple user, let's say your only product is an iPhone. Okay. Let's say you bought the new iPhone this year. You've got the 2022 model of the iPhone 14 Pro Max or the Pro or whatever. There's no USB-C on there. So I'm stuck with Lightning on this. So again, I'm tech-centric. I've got tons of USB-C products in my house. That's not a big deal. But for someone that might not be, they don't have USB-C in their house. They might only have an iPhone and maybe an older iPad that all uses Lightning. So you didn't give a cord for the new change. I feel like it should be mandatory. If you're going to change the format of a plug the first year, give a cable with it at least. It's ridiculous. I just don't understand why you would do that. Change the port, but then not give you the cable for it. But it's also not a standard that is normal in Apple, right? A USB-C isn't normal with their highest selling product. Their highest selling product is the iPhone, and the iPhone doesn't use USB-C yet. So again, mild annoyance. You can't wirelessly charge the remote. There's no wireless charging capability. You can't put it on like on a charger or something like that. That would have been cool if they made maybe the back plastic and make it so that you can charge it on a wireless charger. And then at that point, you wouldn't have to deal with that. Every few years, Apple does this. It's basically turns into a money grab, changing from a full-size charger to a Lightning, losing the headphone jack, needing a dongle. I'm sure there's a few other examples. Oh, absolutely. And we're getting to that, Rolls. Here comes the next one. All right. So here's the next product announcement. So, and back to my own personal experience here. This year, I'm looking to upgrade my kiddos' iPads. They are on old iPad Airs. Getting a little long in the tooth. Updates are slower. The storage is pretty low. Their games and their content is starting to take more space. Time to move them up to like 64 or 128 gig. Cool. I said, hey, let me buy some iPads. Wait a minute. Nope. The event is coming up. Let me wait because the entry-level iPad, if you didn't know, the entry-level iPad is $329. Not a bad price for the iPad. Especially with the technology that it has. You can use like an Apple Pencil on it. 9.7 inch screen, fast, good size screen, perfect. Put a kid case on it, you're good to go. It's fantastic. Of course, there are cheaper tablets out there, but I have never found one that feels as good as an iPad. Simple as that. Yeah, all right. Buy a MacBook, it comes with USB-C. That's right. I mean, I have one, so there you go. But I digress. So I was like, I'm very interested in this entry-level refresh to the iPad. And sure enough, they announced it. So the iPad 10th gen, the 10th generation, because the 2021 edition was the 9th generation. The new one is the 10th edition. And sure enough, it looks cool, right? They've now changed the format. They've removed the home button. They're going to the style of the smaller bezel, no home button, that sort of thing. Look cool. I was excited. I was like, all right, there we go. It looks more like what's called the iPad Air. The last year model iPad Air went to like the full size screen with no home button. I was like, cool. They're basically bringing an old SKU over to the entry level. It'll be great. And they start just saying the features, and they announced the CPU. They announced all the features on it. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, same resolution as the iPad Air, same CPU. This looks like they're just rebranding the iPad Air and maybe a couple new features. And then here comes one of the big ones. They announced that it uses the Apple Pencil, and I'm like, cool. like this is going to use the Apple Pencil 2, like the iPad Air. No. It uses the original Apple Pencil. Are you familiar with the Apple Pencil? Has everyone seen what an Apple Pencil looks like, the original one? The Apple Pencil is a weird product. It's one of those weird skeuomorphic products that Rolls was just talking about, dongles and whatnot. The original Apple Pencil is a, cylinder white pencil with a little cap. You pop the cap off, and there is a male lightning plug on the end. And how you charged it is you would plug it in to the bottom of your iPad, or you stick this pencil into this iPad. So you've got this iPad and then a big old pencil sticking out of it, and it would charge up. 30 minutes, 15 minutes, and you'd get a full charge. 10 minutes, whatever, and you get a full charge. Absolutely the worst, ergonomics ever for Apple. Because you couldn't use the iPad. You had this big pencil sticking out of it. Or in the box, it came with a little adapter so you could basically join a lightning cable, a USB lightning cord to it so that you can then plug it in. So that's fine. But the idea was there you go, astronaut. It's as good as the mouse, right? So another big bungle in that same year range is they announced the rechargeable mouse with the charging port at the bottom. So the lightning plug is at the bottom of the mouse. So when you plug in the cord, you can't use the mouse. Absolutely ridiculously bad design. This is coming from Apple, folks, a company that is known for their really sleek and very industrial engineering design, and then they do these kind of things. Okay, fine. Johnny said it was the best mouse ever. Right. And because semantics of the charging mouse, I'm thinking how easy to be. Yeah, right. So, there's places to put the pen. There's cases, whatever else. The pen cap, on the other hand, is a little magnetic cap that can fall off. That is something you would lose. One of the first accessories for the Apple Pencil when it first came out way back in 2017, 2016 with the first iPad Pro was a little rubber leash that you would put on it so that you could pop the cap off and not lose it. So funny. But yes, the pencil's expensive. $99 for the pencil. The Gen 1 pencil has a lightning plug. So you're okay, so it doesn't use the Apple Pencil 2. It uses the Apple Pencil 1. Okay, cool. They're going to release a Apple Pencil Gen 1 with USB-C, right? Because how are you going to charge this pencil on your iPad that doesn't have lightning anymore? The new iPad has USB-C. You have to buy an adapter. If you already own an Apple Pencil Gen 1, you have to buy a $9 adapter that is female USB-C to female lightning. It's a little adapter this big, little white block. You plug it into the back of the pencil and it gives you a USB-C plug, and then you can plug a USB-C cable into it, which then the cable goes plugged into your iPad. That's how you charge, or you can plug it into a wall charger, but that's how you would plug the pencil on the go. You would have to pull out a cable and plug in the dongle and plug in your pencil. Absolutely the most asinine thing I've ever heard. A new product in 2022, you chose to use an older generation product and then didn't redesign it so you have to add a dongle to use it. Ridiculous. Just ridiculous. I couldn't believe it. When I heard that, I was like, there's no way. There's no way that's what they're doing. And sure enough, yeah. So basically, if you buy a new Apple Pencil Gen 1 right now at the store, their new SKU, it'll come with an adapter. If you already own one, so you're upgrading iPads, then you can use your old pencil, which is nice, I guess. You don't have to buy a new Apple Pencil. You don't have to buy a Gen 2, but you still have to buy a $9 adapter to be able to charge it while you're on the go. Or you have the original adapter and then have another lightning cord in your bag and then use that wall charger to plug that in. It's just, the semantics of it is ridiculous. Yes, the Logic Crayon for iPad does have USB-C, but the Crayon, while is very close to an Apple Pencil because it is a licensed product, doesn't have all the sensitivity and all the features that the Apple Pencil has. So it's definitely an interesting take there on that. I don't know what's going to happen there. I don't even know if the Crayon works, right? They haven't announced if the Crayon works. I know it worked with the previous gen, but will it work with this gen? So we don't know. So okay, fine, Apple Pencil, but you're like, wait a minute, maybe they made it so that it works with both, right? Because it's the same frame as the iPad Air. No, it's not compatible with the iPad Pencil 2 at all, period. You would think maybe they make it backwards compatible, 1 and 2. Fine. Okay. But why? They literally had to have re-engineered the new SKU to look exactly like the iPad Air, but then remove the magnetic charger at the top so that you can't charge the Apple Pencil 2 and use it. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Makes no sense. The price, $439. So it is $110 more than the previous gen, 9th gen. So it's no longer the entry level. Also, they did not stop selling the 9th gen. So it is still not the entry level iPad anymore. It is now iPad 10th gen, iPad 9th gen, $110 cheap, $110 more expensive than the entry level iPad. I don't know what happened there. I don't know what Apple was thinking. It's asinine to me that they would do that. Here's another thing. So this leads me to the third product. But before I move on to the third product, I'm going to tell you a new feature. One of the new features that they finally added to the iPad 10th gen was the camera, right? The front-facing camera. One of the biggest requests from anybody that uses an iPad is, hey, Apple, we like to use the iPad in landscape mode. Can you please stop putting the camera on the left-hand side, basically the top and portrait? It's not a phone. It's a tablet. We want to use it sideways. Can you move the camera to the center middle, like the long side, the horizontal side? So they did. So the new iPad 10th gen has the camera in the center of which is a win. Like, that's cool. But it's too much. It's a weird SKU. The Apple Pencil 2 doesn't work on it. It's like $20 or $30 more. You can go buy a refurbished iPad Air from Apple directly that has a better ergonomics, better, the camera's still moved, but it's technically better because it's got a newer chip in it, a faster chip, and it supports the newer pencil. So, like, I just don't get it. It's like they take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Or no, what is it? 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. It's just weird to me. Like, release a new product, but then remove a feature. Release a product, release a feature. Release a product, make it harder and difficult to use, like adding a dongle. It's just so weird. 2 steps, 3 steps back. That's right. An interesting moment, interesting scenario there. Okay, so the camera's been moved on this one. Fine. Let's talk about the next product. The next product they announced was the iPad Pro. New SKU for the iPad Pro. This is a kind of an interesting scenario here. If you're unfamiliar, again, if you're not into tech and you're not following Apple products like I am and a few others that I know, the iPad Pro was already kind of an overkill product. The iPad Pro last year got an upgrade to the M1 chip. The M1 chip is not their mobile chip. It's not the same. Before, the iPads used to have the same chip as their iPhones. It would be their Bionic 12, 13, 14, etc. chips. But last year they moved to the M1. The M1 is their desktop class ARM chip. It is their own Apple Silicon desktop chip, but it's the same chip that's inside of a MacBook Air. And one of the biggest problems that you read, go watch any of the reviews from the iPad Air from last year, and they'll tell you what's going on here is that the CPU in these things are super powerful, but you're still stuck using iPad OS. And iPad OS is, while they keep trying to add features to make it more pro, nothing about the operating system makes you use pro applications. There are a lot of pro style apps, like Adobe Photoshop does exist on there, but that's all third party. Apple hasn't released they haven't released like Final Cut for the iPad. It's got the same guts as a MacBook Air, so it's already overkill. So the best analogy that I like to use is it's essentially a Ferrari that is stuck in traffic. You cannot go anywhere. You can't use any of the speed and power in this iPad Pro from last year, even today. Nothing is maxing out that iPad Pro. Nothing is using it. And when the reviews come out for the M2 iPad, you're going to see people say the same thing. They're going to be like, who is this for? That's the one thing no one complained about on the iPad, was it needed more power, it needed more memory. It didn't need it. What it needed was a better functionality. It needed I approve of that. Yeah, it's the best I can come up with in my head. I mean, it's you have a sports car and you can't go anywhere with it, and that's what the iPad is like right now. So that's what it was last year. So this year, what did they do? Well, I mean, they did the same thing, right? They upgraded the CPU to the M2, which is the new generation of their M chip. Again, which is faster, 30% faster than the M1. Okay, but what are you gonna do with it? Where are you gonna go with it? You can't do anything with it. It's got Thunderbolt on it, so I guess you could use it for transferring photos back and forth and maybe captured footage. But unless you've got like a terabyte iPad, you can't plug hard drives to it and use the storage directly. It's not a laptop. You know, my MacBook that I'm streaming from right now is one of the newer models, it's the M1 Pro. If I plug a hard drive to it, I have access to it. You plug a hard drive into an iPad, and you can see it under the files, but you can't take a picture with the iPad and immediately save it to that hard drive. You have to move things manually. There's no extended storage on an iPad. So it's not a desktop and it's not a laptop, but it's not a phone. It's a tablet. It's its own thing, but it's so hindered by its own operating system. So they announced, again, the new one, the iPad Pro, the 2022 model's got the M2 in it. All right, well, what did they change on it? Externally, I was like, well, surely they moved the camera, right? Because the cheaper models got the camera moved. No, they didn't move it. They didn't do anything. They didn't change anything. The chassis is the exact same. They just upgraded the M1 to the M2. I mean, I get it. Like as a tech company that you're manufacturing your own chips, you're eventually going to stop manufacturing that chip. So you won't have a product with that M1 chip on the shelf anymore. So you don't have to make new runs of it. So now all you have is M2. So of course it's going to go to M2. But again, Apple, like, can we stop like trying to shoehorn things into iPad OS? Either make iPad OS more like Mac OS. I don't want to say port Mac OS to the iPad. I think it's too much there. You don't have full keyboard functionality, and I don't want Mac OS to go touch because it doesn't. I think Windows is broken when it's touch. Like, it just doesn't. It's silly. So I don't know what's going on here. Weird skeuomorphic choices, weird pricing, weird product lineup where you've now got an entry level, but you still have the last year model. I don't know what this is like. Again, I haven't felt like a rant on Apple for a long time. And again, I'm an Apple user. I have an iPad, and but what I ended up doing now is today, which was nice, is right after the talk, right after I saw this, I saw that, of course, the 9th gen iPad was on sale on Amazon for $269, down from $329. So that's a big drop. And it's still for sale because from Apple directly, it's still $329 because they didn't stop selling it. So sure enough, what did I do is I was able to pick up a couple for my kid for Christmas. You know, if they watch this stream, don't be surprised, folks. But that said, though, they're on their way. Like, I picked up a couple of them, you know, and their Christmas is set. I really wanted to buy them the new model, but for the price, it's not worth it. I think $439 for that is not worth it. They didn't go to an M1. They went to the same CPU as the iPad Air. They didn't. You can't use any of the iPad Air accessories. There's a couple of other like weird choices. They added like a keyboard folio case for it, but you can't use the one for the iPad Pro, which fits it. You can't use the one from the iPad Air that fits it. It doesn't work. The keyboard won't function. You have to buy this new one. Just some weird choices. And Apple, like, you're never gonna watch this video, but I tweeted about it. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, what's going on there? Like, that just seems so counterintuitive and so ridiculous in your own product. Like, you get made fun of sometimes. Like, Apple gets made fun of all the time, and this is one where there is no defending them on some of these choices. There's no defending them for the weird charging functionality of the Apple remote and the pencil on the new iPad. Like, it makes no sense. Absolutely none. No, so here's the funny thing. iPads are not locked down. iPads have, I mean, if you're familiar with any type of like iOS corporate deployment, you can do management MDM software. There's all sorts of third-party MDM softwares that support iPads, and they work with Apple directly and allow you to kind of like re-image them, allow you to asset manage them, and all sorts of stuff. So for schools, they work, and yeah, there we go. Yeah, yeah, there you go. It works really well. So yeah, so that's it. I don't think they're too locked down. As a matter of fact, they're perfectly, because what my kids' school uses is Chromebooks, and they're all locked down using Google. So all of that like product management is Chromebook Google management, and it's the same thing. Like it's just a big glorified browser. Everything is browser based, right? Everything is through Google and Google Apps and Google Drive and web portals, and so yeah, I think iPads would be better for kids. I think there are campuses out there and schools that use iPads, and I've read good things and are good things. Um, I don't know if the price of an iPad, if they could get, if they're eventually going to go where the M2 or whatever is a cheap functionality, it'd be great to see them make these iPads like a cheaper laptop, like a Chromebook kind of thing, tablet, where you could buy them with a keyboard and make them as, you know, if you're going to charge $500 for them, $600 for them, then give me a keyboard with them as well. You already have a desktop chip in there. Upgrade the operating system to be just a little more closer to Mac OS. Allow them to be managed like this, and they'd be perfect replacements for Chromebooks. Chromebooks are such crap. They're crap hardware. They're like netbooks in 2022. Ours of iPad, my preschool doesn't have the App Store. The middle school has certain apps. Yes, right. So, and they're managed that way, right? So, because kids are gonna be kids, right? They're gonna go to the App Store and log in with their own. They're gonna iCloud activate them and lock them to their own credentials that they then lose, and then they have to go through Apple and prove that they own them. So it's a big mess for sure, but there's definitely ways to manage them. And you're right. So I don't know. This entire rant is so funny to me because like I never talk about this kind of stuff on this stream. This is more video game and geek culture and all that, but I'm a big geek tech as well. I like talking about tech and CPUs and GPUs and gaming and computers and Apple and all that kind of stuff. I mean, a good example, like this is a MacBook Pro, M1 Pro. I've got a new iPhone, with the dynamic island on it. Woo, look at that. There it is. I've got the new watch, like the Ultra. Like I'm an Apple head. I buy their products. I like using them. So Apple, you've got my money, but you also should listen to us. And none of these products you released today I don't want a single one of them. Even the Apple TV kind of soured me with the fact that now I have to spend what I could have spent already, and you basically said it's cheaper, but not really, because one of the features you want has been pulled, so you have to spend $150. It's just weird. Oh man, yeah. I mean, so it's tough. I mean, again, there's a lot of tools out there for that kind of stuff. Different MDMs for sure. JMF, I'm not sure what functionality it has or doesn't have compared to other ones out there. But that said, yeah, I can imagine it's been a headache, especially if the restrictions weren't set too hard on some of these products when you handed them out for the COVID furlough. So who knows what's going to happen here? These, I think, products in general. Apple's got a whole behind the scenes, again, working at Apple corporate. They've got a whole EDU department, folks. They've got a whole floor at in Cupertino and at in the Austin campus dedicated to EDU, to education. They've got district sales managers. Basically, you are a employee at Apple, and you have been hired to be an EDU employee, and you are in charge of a whole district in California and Arizona and Washington and Texas and whatever else. And so their entire job is to sell, manage, upgrade, that sort of thing for these districts. So they definitely have schools. That said, though, they're not the cheapest products for school districts, but honestly, again, I'm putting up my Apple fanboy hat here, is I think the products are better for kids than Chromebooks. Chromebooks to me are so netbooky, so chintzy is another way to put it. They're just they're cheap for cheap's sake. They're entry level hardware, plastic, bad keyboards, bad screens, lowest resolution crap, just enough to like install this like net loaded operating system that's running on like 32 gigabytes of MMC slow storage. They're just crap. So they certainly know what they're doing with these kids with really Jesuit style. Anyway, that's my rant. An hour and 20 minutes in. Folks, if you enjoyed that kind of stuff, let me know. I'm more than happy to do other streams like this and talk about maybe, like a week in tech roundup, Apple stuff. There's other news that hit, that I don't usually talk about on the show, GPUs and the 4090 dropped and the prices and all that kind of crap. That stuff is just, sadly, and again, this is nothing against Pedro. I love Pedro. Pedro's that's not his hobby. So I can't talk about that and keep him engaged. So I have to talk about something that we're all engaged about. But he's not here today, so I can talk about this kind of stuff. So the cigar review stream, man, I've been holding on to that one. I'm gonna sit here real quick and take some nice big puffs of this one before we get off streaming. There we go. Yeah, Dan. Yeah, so there was a big stream. Like a good example is, last week we had the Google I/O. You had the big Google Pixel event, and they announced the Pixel 7, and it's out, and you've got a new watch out now, and this has a lot to do with yes, I am. It is actually. This is so funny. This thing right here. Here, I'll show you. It's a pretty big flame, but yes, I use this one as my go-to. Like I have a bigger one that I use for my table one, but that's a quick light that I like to use. Dan, yeah, they had the Google and the Pixel event, and this was the Pixel Watch was announced, and that's been out. You've probably seen pictures of it and people using it. It's a nice round screen, really nice looking watch. But man, people that have been using it are like, this thing is just like. It's like Google and Android have not been working on wearables at all. They purchased Fitbit. If you're unfamiliar with that or didn't know, Google bought Fitbit a year or two ago, whatever, 3 years now. It's been a while now that they bought them, and with Fitbit and Fitbit technology, they kind of made their Pixel watch, and all the menu system is just this messy Fitbit like throw up of information. And from what I've seen, it's also a round screen, and a lot of the complaints have been that the GUI hasn't been really created for a round screen. So a good example is you pull up like a calendar, and calendars are square, right? Like you 5 columns and whatever, and it just cuts everything off. Like you got to like scroll up and down to kind of like look at stuff, because it's just not conducive to a round screen. Look, round watches are beautiful as an actual watch, but smart watches, I think round is just not really the way to go if you're going to use it for anything other than time, right? Or basic like functionality of like numbers, because after that, it's the data isn't there. Like I feel like you can't see the data. It's better when it's in a square because you're reading text. This one, it's 49 millimeters now, and it's got such a big screen that it's actually got a full keyboard I can type on now. It's pretty neat. But yeah, again, the Pixel looks great. That kind of tech is always exciting to me. Smartphone technology and handhelds and Steam Deck stuff and all that. I don't talk about it much, but again, if y'all want to hear more of that on the stream, please let me know. I'm interested in always supplementing more streams for this kind of stuff. Anywho, hour and a half in, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to probably sit out here and enjoy this for a little longer. There we go. Again, let me know if you like this. Pedro will be back next week, hopefully fully recharged. we'll see how it goes. I'll share real quick what I'm drinking tonight. I'm drinking some Ardbeg. I got a 3-bottle kind of a Halloween special for my wife for Christmas, and this is a really smoky whiskey, so good for fall. Hopefully everyone's enjoying the fall weather. If you're up north, Caleb, I know that you're up in Ohio, and I know you guys are going to get snow probably coming soon. Hopefully everyone's enjoying that fall weather. Get outside, enjoy this fall weather while you can, because then the cold comes and no one wants to go out. But yeah, go get your fall on for the next 3-4 weeks, at least if you're in Texas, folks. Again, another episode in the can. Be kind, everyone. Take care. See you guys next week. Love you guys.